Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have a very special treat. We have a couple of theists who are brave enough to come on here with all of us atheists and tell us a little bit about their beliefs. And so today I have I'm sorry, I forgot. It's Karlana, right?
Karlana.
Karlana. There we go.
Karlana. Just think it rhymes with banana. Karlana.
Okay. We have Karlana and Karlana's son, Elkin. And Karlana, first, I'm going to let you say hello to everyone and tell everyone how you came to be on here. How did you meet me?
Okay. Thank you. So I am on YouTube quite a bit. It is my social media of choice. I don't do Facebook. I don't do other venues, but I do like YouTube. And so your channel had started coming into my screen for some reason. My algorithms, is that right, Elkin?
Algorithms.
Algorithm, yeah.
And so I started looking at the content, and I was coming into some of the conversations a few times. I was under I am watching. So I don't know if you remember that or not.
But I have seen that, yes. Mm-hmm.
And of course, people didn't usually like the comments that I had made. But so then I had, after that, contacted you and just kind of felt convicted that it would be a good thing to have to come on your show. And Elkin had expressed an interest in joining me. So I was really pleased that he wanted to choose to do that. So that's kind of how, like I said, you just popped up, and then I had an interest, and I had looked at some different videos that you had made and watched some of your live streams as well. So
okay, very good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a talk today, and I want to start by establishing a few areas of commonality. Because it's always easier to go over areas where it's going to be very easy to find areas where we disagree, but I would like to find a couple of points of commonality first so that we can kind of agree on what our goals are here. And one of my goals is I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. Would you agree that that is a goal of yours as well, Karlana?
I do. I do believe that, but I am a person who relies a lot on faith. And I know that that's something that atheists don't like to hear, but it's true. There are things in this life that we're never going to get an answer to. And I think that we have to be okay with that to a point. If you can figure something out, then good, go for it. But there are certain things that we're never going to know why they happen. We're never going to get those.
I will agree with you there. I will agree that, there are some things that are unknowable, like the origins of the universe, at least at this point, is unknowable. There may come a point where we know exactly how the universe began, but at this point, we don't know. But as far as things that we do know or we can find out about, when I come to realize that I have believed something and I find out that what I believed was false, then I no longer believe what I find out had been false. Would you agree that that is something that you do as well?
Well, again, it's to a point. What my main conviction in my heart is, I don't ever want to feel like I'm too smart for God. I don't ever want to feel like that I know more than he does, or that, I can understand questioning some things from the Bible. I've done it all my life. I've been in the church all my life. To be honest with you, our family, we have started with a different church that we had always had misconceptions about this church, this religion that we're now pursuing, and we're happier than we've been. And later in life, because growing up, my husband and I both had some unusual religious experiences, to be honest with you, but it has not enough that it has caused us to discontinue our belief in God. And I hope that, like I said, I don't ever want to get to the point where I feel that my intelligence exceeds the need for God.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something, Elkin?
I do have a lot of faith also, but I try to base a lot of my beliefs and things on evidence. And from
Very
some of
good.
the evidence I've looked at, that
Mm-hmm.
there is a reasonable amount of proof that God does exist. In my opinion, of course, I haven't looked at every document in the world, but just the ones I have seen. But that may also be biased because I was raised in a Christian household. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just want to make a comment to the chat that people can make whatever comments they like, and I will be looking for comments that I think are helpful to add something to the discussion. If anyone wants to post any questions in the chat, I will welcome your questions. You might have a question that it may take a while before I get to, because sometimes we are on a particular topic and you ask a question, and by the time you finish typing the question, we've moved on to another topic. And so if I think you've got a really good question, I do want to address it, I'll finish the topic we're on now and then get back to your question. So if you put a question in the chat and I don't answer it right away, or I don't ask it of one of the guests right away, just hang on. I'll try to get to it later. Okay, Karlana, I was trying to get a feel for what your religion is. Obviously, it's Christianity, but I was having a hard time getting a little bit more detail as to what that is. I assume you're not Catholic, correct?
Well, actually, to be honest with you, we have been going to the Catholic Church.
Okay, so you are
Had,
Catholic.
yes, we're studying to be Catholic. Had never been before. Had both my husband and I had both grown up with a lot of things that we're finding out, like I said, misconceptions about Catholicism, and it just seems like a really good fit for our family. The bare bones of it and the basic truths of it, we really find fit for us and our lifestyle. Of course, there have been things that have not that in the church that have happened that have not been good. That happens in a lot of churches, unfortunately. As you know, we're all human, we're fallible, and these things happen. But as far as the basic truths of the Catholic Church, we just seem like it. I don't know. It just seems like we've found our place.
Okay. So now, to me, a lot of the Catholic ritual really looks like magic, particularly the whole transubstantiation. The priest blesses the communion, and the communion physically turns into the body and blood of Christ. And at that point, you are literally eating flesh and drinking blood. And when you're an insider and you're used to doing this ritual seems like a fairly normal thing. But when you're an outsider looking in and you're asking, why on earth would you want to eat your God? Can you answer some of that?
Oh, well, I can understand where that would seem strange to people. And honestly, as me being new in the faith, it's something that I still am learning. And there's things that can't be explained. I don't want to keep going back to that, but I mean, it is different. It is different to hear that and to study it that way. But where we went, we were Christian before and we did communion then. Now they may not take it as literally, but it's basically serves the same purpose as for your renewing and your wanting to stay close with God. So that's the importance of it, and that's the significance I place on it rather than trying to read
yeah.
too much. What do you think, El?
Okay, but what I'm thinking is that when I want to have a relationship with a person and when I want to renew my relationship with that person, I don't go and bite them.
No, I
I
get
don't
that.
try to eat them.
No, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
What it's trying to show is how much he is willing to sacrifice to save us.
Okay, let's go with that topic for a minute. Actually, I've got a question in the chat, and we're gonna go with the question in the chat, and then we're gonna come back to Elkin's point, which is a very good point. But Beej asked, "Are you fine with Catholics changing the Sabbath day, even though that was an important commandment to keep the Sabbath?" Karlana? Karlana, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey, you caught it. I don't, again, that's not something that is a big deal to me. I don't know that it should be. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Okay. Now, Elkin, you brought up a point that I wanted to get to. What was it again?
Um, I have very bad memory. That how we do the communion represents how much he was willing to sacrifice for us.
The sacrifice. Yes, yes, yes. What exactly did Jesus sacrifice?
Well, his his mortal life, and also by being tortured in hell.
So you believe that Jesus literally went to hell and was tortured in hell?
Yeah, and then he was brought to the right hand of the Father.
Okay. First question. Why do you think that that happened?
Because he was wanting to kind of pay for our sins to the devil.
Okay.
By
Karlana, you can help him out at any point. Even if I direct a question at Elkin, please feel free to go ahead and take over for him if you wish to at any point. That's not really what I was asking Elkin. What I was asking you is, why do you think that that is true? Why do you think that that actually happened?
Well, mainly because a lot of the other things in the Bible I see evidence for, and thus that is in the same sort of scripture. So if something were to be, let's say, something were to be mostly right and we weren't sure on a part of it, most likely that part would also be right.
Okay. And what do you see evidence for that's in the scripture?
Like majorly the major events in like history and how all the things played out, and also how it feels to me. I know this is kind of subjective, but how I feel in the church, I just feel very close to a presence.
Okay. Let's go to what you said about history. So do you believe that Noah's Ark literally happened?
Yes, history.
Okay. Do you realize that that is absolutely impossible? And not only do we know that it could not happen, but that there is definitive evidence that it did not happen.
Well, I haven't fully looked into the evidence, but history is a very long time.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It is a very long time. It's millions of years, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
I think it's 13
something
point,
billion.
someone in the chat correct me, but I think it's like 13.6 billion years old is how old the Earth is. But
I'm pretty sure that's the universe. The Earth is 4 billion.
okay. But humans have only been around for about 200,000 years. And so I was kind of looking more at human history, because obviously the Bible isn't about anything before humans existed, correct?
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah. Okay. Do you also realize that it is historically impossible for the Exodus to have happened?
So the Exodus being, I'm not quite sure on that terminology.
Okay. The Exodus was when Moses allegedly led the Hebrew slaves out of Egypt. The second book of the Bible is called Exodus, and it's the story of how the Hebrew people came to be slaves in Egypt because Joseph allegedly was sold into slavery to Potiphar in at the end of Genesis. And I'm sorry, yeah, he was sold into slavery to Potiphar. He eventually becomes second ruler of Egypt. He becomes very great in Egypt, but then along come later rulers who don't know anything about Joseph, and the Hebrews are eventually enslaved. And there's a lot of people who say that the Hebrew slaves are the ones that built the pyramids. There are others that say that that is not the case. But then eventually, the story of the Exodus is how Moses goes and leads the Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt. So you're not even familiar with the stories of the Old Testament.
I am mostly familiar, but I'm not familiar with the names of the books or anything.
Okay. Have you ever read the Bible?
I haven't read the full thing, but I have read quite a few parts.
Okay. So how can you say that you believe that this is history if you haven't even read it and you don't even know what it says?
Well, I know the main like points and most of what happened. So that's kind of how I base that.
Okay. And what are some of these main points that you know?
The most important point is, of course, when Jesus died for our sins,
Okay.
when the earth was created, all the different, sort of um, king kings that have existed, which teach us a different lesson, like kind of how Daniel he taught us a few different lessons. And
Okay, let's do one thing at a time, because it's too hard to let's go ahead and focus on Jesus.
okay,
Now you said you believe that Jesus really did die on the cross and was raised from the dead, correct?
yes.
And why do you think this is factually true?
Um, mm, Mainly because of um, there were many of accounts of it, and it kind of obviously you can prove that he did die. I mean, most likely there were there are so many people there. But the resurrection, um, I mainly, of course, that is more faith based. There's not as much evidence on that.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a few accounts, but
Okay,
of
when you
course,
say there are accounts, who wrote these accounts and when did they write them, and what are these accounts that you're referring to?
um, what was written in the Bible about when the um, when like John when John saw him raised from the dead.
Okay, so are you thinking that the apostle John wrote an account of what happened?
It was one of the apostles, and I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm sure. Well, um, they wrote the accounts that are in the Bible of that.
Okay. Are you thinking that the apostles wrote the four gospels?
Um, I think so.
Okay. There is no apostle named Luke. Why would there be a book of Luke when there's no apostle named Luke? And how would that be written by an apostle?
Well, I'm not quite sure there. I was just meaning that that particular book where that occurred was written by one of the apostles.
Okay. Even Christian Bible scholars do not agree with you on that point.
Okay.
Christian
Well,
Bible scholars agree that none of the gospels were written by the apostles. There are some that say that the apostle John wrote the book of John, but even that one there's major disagreement on.
okay. Well, of course, I'm not quite sure on many of these things because I've just started researching these things a little while ago. Hopefully, my mom will know more things than I do.
Well,
Okay,
I have a question, Granny, or I have a question that I don't know if this is really on topic with what you're saying now, but just something that I wanted to ask you is what do you think if you believe truly that when your life on earth is over and that's it, fade to black, whatever, however you choose to believe, what do you feel like your purpose in this life is? What do you feel like you're
Okay.
called to do?
Before I answer that, I want to correct something in the question.
Okay.
Because in the question you said, see, I can't even remember what it was
That
now.
you believe that that at the end of your life there will just be black, I think.
That
That
the
was
end
your
of
No,
your
that
life just means that most people that are atheists believe that this is the only life that you
right.
get.
I do believe that this.
Uh-oh.
I'm getting an emergency alert, a blue alert. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do we need to? Are you good?
No,
Okay.
it just means that there's a police officer down in the area.
Oh, okay.
It's a blue alert, or possibly a missing police officer.
Oh.
Nothing that I'm going to do anything about.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, okay, yes, I most definitely do believe that um, at the end of life, this is it. You know, you're done with. So, what do I believe my purpose in life is? My purpose in life is whatever I make it to be. It's my life. I do what I want with my life. If I want my purpose in life to be as an activist for trans rights, then that is my purpose in life. If my purpose in life is to serve my family, to love my family, and to raise a family, then I actually have many purposes in my life. And I've just given you two of them.
Okay.
But this is one of the main reasons why I am not a believer, is because this is the only life I have. It would be ridiculous to waste the only life I have trying to pursue a life that I hope exists and I have no evidence for its existence.
How sad for me to hear you say that. That's heartbreaking for me to hear you say that. And
Well,
I think that's the thing that's wrong with our world today is when you say, I want what I can choose to do and be whatever I want to be.
That's what you said that I wanted to get to.
Yes.
Okay, I do not choose what I believe. I believe what I am convinced of. And I think you are the same way. I don't think you can choose to believe something. For example, look at my shirt. Okay. Can you choose to believe that my shirt is blue?
there are some people who are messed up and probably could, but no.
I would
Okay.
say no. I would say no.
Okay. You believe what you're convinced of. Your eyes have convinced you that my shirt is not blue. And
Right.
because you have seen that evidence, you cannot simply choose to believe something that is contrary to the evidence you've been presented with. And it's the same way with religious beliefs. I can't simply choose to believe God when I have no reason to believe him. And that's why the main questions that I ask of all believers are, why do you believe that?
So may I ask this? When you were a believer, as you were at one time, am I correct to say that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a prayer life? Did you pray to
Oh,
God?
of course.
You
Of
took your
course.
concerns and your worries and your cares to God. Did that not seem like it took the burden off of you? Did you not seem like you had any
No.
connection? Nothing.
No.
Seriously.
You know, occasionally, I occasionally did feel better, but I don't think that is any more. I don't. I can get the same kind of relief from writing my thoughts down in a journal. I can get the same kind of feeling from a session of meditation. I don't think that there's anything special about praying.
Wow.
In fact, that is one of the things that I noticed reflecting back on my 42 years as a believer, that of all the times that I had a journal where I had, these are my prayer requests, and these are the answers to prayer that I've seen. But there was nothing on that list that was an answer to prayer that could not have happened had I not prayed for it. There's nothing that happened because I prayed for it.
So you're saying essentially that you don't think prayer, you think it's insignificant. You think prayer does not make a difference. Is that what you believe?
I not only believe that, I would say that, the evidence for that is overwhelming. I mean, look at what just happened in Uvalde. You can't tell me that those children were not praying that that guy's gun would jam, or praying that that guy would have a heart attack and die. And none of those prayers were answered. And if there's a God out there that is listening to people pray about who's going to win a game, and is granting grace to a football team, but says no to a bunch of children that are simply asking not to be shot in the head, if that's God, you can have him. I wouldn't want that God.
No, I understand what you're saying. And I think that a lot of people, I'm not saying that this is your story, but I think a lot of people have become bitter, and they've closed themselves off because they don't want to believe there is a God that would, make things happen like that. We don't have the answers. We don't know, but I just don't know how you keep from feeling very hopeless in life. If you feel like this is it and this is your one shot, and when you had been a believer for so many years, and then you saw yourself as becoming more intelligent and enlightened, and decided that there was no God. I just don't know. To me, it seems like their story is backward, and it just seems
Well,
sad.
Okay,
to
just
me.
a minute. Just a minute. I need to acknowledge a super chat. Skits Crasher has given me $2 and asked, did someone pray for $2? Thank you very much, Skits Crasher. I appreciate the super chat. Okay, go ahead.
Elkin, were you going to say something?
Well, also, I can understand why she does still have motivation. Every shot you don't take, you miss. So if she had one shot at life, I mean, why wouldn't she try to use it well?
Exactly.
Well,
I've only got one life. I'm gonna live it to the best that I can.
But
I'm gonna do the most good for the most people that I can in this life, because this is the only life I've got.
oh my
Now,
gosh.
Karlana, here is one thing that happened to me as my faith was deconstructing. The biggest thing that I feared in not believing was not being able to enjoy creation, because I felt like when I went out for a walk, I looked around and I said, goodness gracious, look at all the wonderful things that God made. Isn't this fantastic? And the biggest thing that I feared in no longer believing was going outside and no longer thinking that that God had created this. But instead, I found exactly the opposite. As soon as I quit believing in God, the first time I went outside and looked around, I went, what a wonderful world has just evolved from so little. This is absolutely wondrous. And I had even more awe and wonder at nature than I ever did as a believer, thinking that, God just kind of snapped his fingers or said some kind of words, and then it was there.
So you would honestly be more apt to believe like a Big Bang story, and you think all the intricacies of nature and all the ways that so many animals are in just instinctively know things about how to reproduce and how to, sea turtles, for instance. I love sea turtles. How is it that they know to go back to the same place to nest? How do all these things happen? You think it's just circumstance that these intricacies of nature take place? How?
Okay. Well, we might get to that, but that is such a deep and complex topic that I'd prefer to save that possibly for another day and stick with this more. Lone Wanderer's Bunker has brought a really good super chat here. And thank you very much for the super chat, Lone Wanderer. Lone Wanderer says, I have always been an atheist. And when I was trying to be a believer, I felt hopeless, depressed, and disgusted with myself. I'm now God-free and happy. And I would echo what Lone Wanderer said. I am far happier as an atheist than I ever was as a believer. Because as a believer, I was constantly trying to be pleasing to God. I was trying to do whatever God wanted me to do. And I was always worried that hadn't done enough. I hadn't, that maybe there was something more that God wanted of me. And as an unbeliever, I make my own life.
Okay, when you
Um,
say that, when you say you make your own life, see that's what's troubling to me is like where is your accountability? Where do you like people that this is something that I've honestly wondered about. If you're an atheist and what's your moral compass? How do you know right from wrong and good from bad? How do you know
The
that you're
same way I did as a believer. What is morally good is good, and what is bad. And how do I determine what is good and what is bad? The primary thing for me is well-being. Whatever promotes the most well-being and does the least damage, that is a good thing.
so in essence you may have behavior that's harmful to someone, but if it doesn't bring you
No, because
remorse.
that doesn't promote well-being. If something is harmful, it does not promote well-being.
But
yeah,
it if you're a person who doesn't have good intentions, your well-being may be someone else's misfortune. You see what I'm saying?
but
So I'm
that's
just saying if
not.
you
Yeah, but
don't.
that's completely contrary to the
Yeah,
ethical system that I've given you.
she's trying to say like doing the most good for the most people,
Mhm.
trying to please the most amount of people you can.
Not necessarily please, but do what's best for the most people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you feel like in having this channel, you're actually helping people in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you think that it's good to encourage people to not believe in God.
I don't know that I necessarily encourage people not to believe in God. I encourage people to believe in what is true. And I encourage people to look at why they believe what they believe. And is there really any truth behind it? And if there is no truth behind it, there's no reason to believe it. And when you look at history and the history of what religion has done for people and what non religion does for people, clearly non religion is better because studies have shown that countries and even areas within the country that are less religious, the people are more educated. They have longer longevity. They have lower instances of diabetes. They have fewer STDs. They have fewer teen pregnancies. There are fewer of them in jail. And when the more religious areas are exactly the opposite. Um,
Well,
when I look at that, I say that, the moral compass of the unbeliever is at least as good, if not superior, to that of the believer. And the reason I think that is because there are things that believers are told to believe, and they do believe them, even if their moral compass tells them they are wrong. And one of the best examples of that is slavery. In the Bible, God endorses slavery. He has no problem with slavery. But slavery clearly is morally wrong. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I am not an advocate for slavery. No, I do not.
Okay.
I don't have
But
anyone that is in bondage right now. So
okay. But the God of the Bible is fine with slavery.
the God,
The God of the Bible also is fine with genocide. The God of the Bible is fine with killing innocent children. And I don't think those are good things.
there are things and passages in the Bible that the God of the Bible does things that I don't understand, that I can't answer. But I believe in my heart He is an all-knowing, all-loving God. And one point I wanted to make to you is when you say, you believe that this life is one and done, and we live to make our own way, so to speak, choose to do what makes us happy. Um, why do you think the Bible's been translated so many times, and why do you think there are so many different religions? And does that not make you think maybe there's more to it than what we know and what we see, and that God is so much more complex and all-knowing than what we give him credit for? You know, why, if there's not more to it, how do you explain all the different
Okay, you've
denominations?
asked a dozen different questions there.
I'm
Which
sorry.
one do you want me to answer?
I guess I want you to answer, like, why has the Bible been translated so many times, and why are there so many different religions?
Okay, well, first, the reason the Bible's been translated so many times is, for one thing, the Christians were in power for a very long time. The Pope had tremendous power for over 1,000 years, influence over government in all of Europe, and it was state-sponsored religion. I mean, we had the Inquisition that forced you to either admit that you believe or you were killed. And so originally, the Catholic Church said that the Bible could only be read in Latin, and it wasn't translated into other languages. So, for the first 1,500 years that the Bible existed, it was not translated because the church refused to allow it to be translated. It was when Luther came along and said, hey, if we want people to read this and understand it, to believe it, we ought to at least let people hear it in their own language. So they translated it into German and then into English, and then as it became a piece of popular literature, it got translated into other languages as well. So the fact that the Bible's been translated into lots of languages, I mean, Harry Potter's been translated into lots of languages too, but that doesn't make Harry Potter a true book.
And if I may ask, are you still friends with anyone who is a Christian at
Yes,
this
my
point?
my husband is still a Christian.
Are you kidding? Wow. So obviously you're still friends with him. But I mean, do you not notice, so you don't think that you can see a difference in most people that are believers? You don't think there's a different lifestyle? You don't think
Oh,
that
I don't see any difference whatsoever. I
really?
mean, look at the Southern Baptist Church. They recently came out with this scandal that showed that the leadership of the Southern Baptist Church had a list of 700 pastors that had been accused of sexual impropriety with people in their congregations. And rather than deal with the problem, they covered it up. And the Catholic Church is even worse. Not only do you have all of the sex scandals from the pedophile priests, you also have the scandals of the schools in Canada, where a lot of, and please, Canadians, correct me because I know I don't know the exact words. In the United States, we call them Native Americans, and I know that that is not the correct term in Canada. In Canada, I believe they're called First Nations. Someone in the chat, please correct me. But anyway, there have been multiple schools found with lots of dead bodies behind the schools of children that were killed there. And these children were not cared for. And okay, thank you, First Nations. Okay. So no, I definitely do not think the Catholic Church has a good history of being morally superior to other people.
No, I mean, that's you can't look at, any church is going to have problems because it's people, and we're all human and we all sin, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I think it's terrible, the things that have happened and that are covered up. I will always say that it's not good. It's not a good thing. It should not have never happened. But look at all the other things in the world now that are so much worse because so many people have turned away from God.
Like what? What has happened because people have turned away from God?
Well, there are a lot of issues in the schools now.
Like what?
People are confused with their gender.
Okay, let's talk about that. First of all, do you think gender dysphoria is a result of people not believing in God?
I personally don't. Well, it could be something that could contribute, if like everything, but I don't think that's a leading cause.
Okay. You're absolutely right, Elkin.
I think that Satan is the author of confusion, and I think that right now we have a lot of people in this world that are very, very confused about who they are and what, where they're going in life.
You can say that about people in the church too. There's an awful lot of people who are believers that do not know who they are and do not know what they're doing in life. And Jenny Morgan is asking, "Let me in," and I don't blame her. Jenny, I'm going to hold you back for a bit because I'm going to try to keep this civil and calm. And I know if I let you in right now, it's going to probably blow up a bit. So let's see if we can't do some education first. Because obviously you do not understand what it means to be transgender. Being transgender is not about being confused about who you are. As purple rhymes with orange, and there are several people in this chat who are transgender. Purple rhymes with orange is one of them. And purple says, I am not confused about my gender. For 50 years, I was forced to play a role that I knew was not me. And Jenny Morgan is exactly the same. Jenny knew from a very young age that she was female, that she was a girl. And yet she was born in a male body. And that she was forced to live as a male was extremely difficult. And if you have not read the studies about what gender dysphoria does to a person and how high the suicide rate is among people with gender dysphoria who are not allowed to express their gender, if you know nothing else about gender dysphoria, know that the American Medical Association, the American Pediatric Association, and the American Psychological Association all agree that this is a legitimate medical issue that requires legitimate medical treatment. And when it is not treated, these people die. And when you sit there and say, well, they're just confused, you are essentially wanting them to die. And that is the problem.
Let me respond to that by saying that's a little harsh to come back and say that I'm wishing someone to die. I do not wish anyone to die. That's kind of harsh. So you need to cut me a little slack on that. Another thing that I wonder is this: when you say gender dysphoria, why are there so many more people now? Why
because it's starting to become socially acceptable. People are able to come out of the closet. It's the same thing with the gay people in the 60s and 70s. In the 50s, if you were gay, you didn't tell anyone. And in the early 60s, it was the same. And toward the end of the 60s, with the sexual revolution, it was okay to be gay, at least in the, and so people started coming out of the closet. And we suddenly realized that the gay community was a much larger community than we ever knew.
Right. And it seems to me that it's the intent to keep recruiting more and just finding that there's more and more. And it seems like it's sort of, so do you not agree that it seems like everyone needs to be gay now too? Does it feel that way to you? Or do you think,
I think anyone who is gay is free to be gay. I can't tell someone what to feel. I can't tell someone what their sexuality is.
Would you agree that it seems like it's a much, to young children especially, they're being influenced very much by the LGBTQ population, by pride, by all these things?
No, I don't. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. Because a person's sexual orientation has nothing to do with what they've heard. People don't hear about being gay and suddenly turn into a gay person.
So you're saying that young children aren't impressionable if they're watching things like TikTok and they're watching people that are transitioning, then you're telling me that's not planting a seed in their mind that, my friend did this and she got attention and she got recognized and I'm feeling insecure about myself and my body. So I think maybe I'll do this and get on testosterone. And I think that's happening more than people are wanting to admit.
Okay, let's first read Jetty's comment. If you do not know the biology and medicine and psychology of transgender, you have no business talking about me or any trans person. I'm wondering if we should bring Jenny in. Because I think you would benefit from meeting a real trans person.
I would be fine with it. I mean, it'd be an interesting experience.
Okay. Jenny, I am going to slip you a link to the chat to your Twitter. And Jenny, you are welcome to join the group. See, the problem is that the way legislation is going right now, it is making it very difficult for trans people just simply to live. And that is what is really scary. Okay, now you said, don't I think that kids are trying to experiment and get on testosterone? No, absolutely not. Because testosterone and hormones are not prescribed for children who are under the age of 15. And they do prescribe puberty blockers for children who express gender dysphoria, and they have to express it for a certain amount of time. Jenny knows far more about this than I do, because Jenny's lived with this for far longer than I have. I do have a transgender son, but I am not as familiar with it because my son just came out 2 years ago.
But see, that's the point I'm making, is it's so commonplace now that people are of all ages are coming out as, if they're not gay, they're pan, they're bi, they're trans. And I'm just thinking, where does it stop? Where do we
What
get
difference does it make? How does it affect you? What does it do to you?
Okay, it does affect me when I am continually, I like the American flag. I'm all about that. I don't need to see a gay pride flag. Why do I need to see a gay pride flag? Why do I need to see a transgender flag? Why do kids need to know the significance
Why
of
does
them
a
and what they
flag
mean?
bother you so much? Why are you so offended by a flag?
It is not something that I need to see. I feel like that is your belief being shoved down my throat. What if I put a cross up everywhere where there's a gay pride flag? Would you be
That's
okay with
exactly
that?
what I was going to say. I can't drive down the street without seeing 5 crosses. And I don't go around complaining about all the crosses that I see on the street every day. I mean, there's one in front of every church, and I can't go to the grocery store without passing 5 churches.
I
Elkin,
think that
I see billboards. I'm sorry, Elkin. I'll let you go in just a minute, but I see billboards all over the freeway. Jesus loves you. Call this number to talk about Jesus. I mean, I see billboards for Jesus all the time. And if I find that offensive, there isn't a thing I can do about it. And so I say, that's your belief. You buy your billboard, you put up your thing, and that's your thing. Fine. But hey, let me have my belief and put up my thing too. Why do you think this is your right but not mine?
Well, when you say put up your thing, if you put up your thing, so to speak, and you keep your thing out of my face, then that's good. I just feel like
But your Christianity is in my face far more than gay pride flags.
Really.
Of
See,
course.
I disagree with you on that.
well,
I can't drive down the freeway without saying at least 5 billboards for Jesus and at least 10 churches.
Why does gay pride last for a month? What other religious celebration lasts for an
gay pride
entire
isn't religious.
month? But I mean, it's a thing. It's a recognition of a certain class of people that lasts the whole month of June. It lasts the entire month of June. Do you not think by the end of June I am over and done?
Lent lasts for a month.
I'm sorry?
Lent lasts for 40 days.
Lent
it's more than a month.
Lent is about the Lord and Savior. Gay pride is about twerking with nude people.
Okay, so now you're not complaining about the length of time. You're complaining that you don't like the ideology.
Yes.
And yet, like I said, your ideology is in my face far more than mine is in your face.
But it's pure and righteous. Is Gay Pride Month pure and righteous?
How your ideology isn't any more pure and righteous than gay pride. Like I said, your ideology includes the Inquisition, pedophile priests, killing First Nations children, killing the people of Jerusalem, going on crusades, leading children into battle. I mean, that is not a self-righteous ideology.
I believe that God is a loving God, and I believe that He is the Savior of the world. I believe that on my faith. I can't answer as to why the horrendous things have happened in our history and why terrible things continue to happen. But I just know that if I were to give up on my faith in God and lose my belief, I can't imagine what my life would look like. That's just the honest truth.
Okay. Go ahead, Elkin.
Well, my main worry about the transgender movement in all this is if it is unhealthy, because like getting on testosterone and all these different hormones, it really does change your brain chemistry, and I'm not sure if that is healthy. I mean, you can say that you're like it doesn't really matter to me what like gender you say you are, but it just matters if you're being unhealthy.
Okay, and I'm Jenny. Your timing could not have been more impeccable, because take it away.
Before I start and say anything, I would like to know the ages of our guests.
Kayla is I'm sorry. Karlana is
Karlana
is an adult.
Yep.
Elkin is a minor. He doesn't want to give away his age, but I will say that he is not of tender years, but he is pretty.
That's close enough.
He's pretty young.
Carla,
Be careful with your language. He's pretty young.
yeah, Karlana, I really like your name, by the way.
Thank you.
I'd like to know at least what decade you were born.
I was born in the late 60s.
Oh, so
really?
You're the same age as we are.
Well, no.
Jenny, you're a little older.
Just don't say we're old, okay? Let's just not say we're old farts.
I'm an old fart. I'm 68. Okay. And I transitioned in 1979 when you were 10 years old. So I know a little bit about it. There were no other transgender people around me. I never knew a transgender person until years after I learned about it and came out myself. So how is it that I turned transgender if nobody was there to influence me?
I'm not saying that it's something that hasn't existed. I never said that, but I do think that there's been a major uptick in the popularity and the influence of the whole movement, because I kind of see it. I know that your personal experience is different, and I do not want to disrespect you, but I think that it has become sort of
a fad, huh?
Like, yes.
Oh, okay, well, it's not. Now, when I came out, from when people are coming out today, the population of the world has increased, what, twice what it was back then? That means there's going to be a heck of a lot more people there to be transgender. Transgender has a predictable number that you're going to get about 1 every 2,000 people or so is going to end up transgender.
And where are you getting that? Just out of curiosity, where do you get that statistic? I mean, I just want to know. I just want to learn.
There is
I don't
a
have
census.
a paper. I don't have a paper I can name. All I can say is from my 40 plus years of experience of living this way and reading everything that came along for my entire life. And I challenge you to tell me where every fact you know comes from.
No,
now,
I'm not trying to get. I'm just trying to be nice. So I'm not trying to get.
They
And
do
I'm
have.
trying to explain to you why what you're saying is what you've heard and been told what you should say. Okay? Transgender is no more popular today than it was when I came out. Transgender is no more is not evil. Children are not talked into being trans. Could I talk you into being homosexual?
I think there is pressure. I do want to say to you that I think some kids really are talked into being trans. I do. I don't say that as a way to insult you or anyone here, but I do think there are kids that are influenced by their parents and by their peers to change their gender. I really believe that because I have seen proof of that. I have seen things that have documentaries and different things that have shown that.
Um, well, I would have to see the sources of those documentaries because there's a lot of easy ways to manipulate media.
I know.
The children I have personally known who have transitioned or begun transitioned or detransitioned were in various programs. Nobody comes to a doctor or their parent at 10 or 12 years old and says, "Mom, I'm transgender," or something like that. And the parent rushes in and say, "Well, then you got to wear these clothes and all that kind of stuff." That just doesn't happen. They go, "Well, geez, that's interesting, child. Let's take you to a doctor and find out what's going on." When they do that, they get involved in various programs or therapy by various people, psychologists, psychiatrists, MSWs, whatever. And they begin to look at themselves and talk about why do they feel this way, what makes them feel that way, how long have they felt that way, what does that mean to them, to begin to define and to understand what that is for themselves. And a lot of those kids realize that that's not what they are, and they detransition, they walk away from it. But a small percentage say, "Oh, I guess that is what I am." And then they might get put on puberty blockers. Puberty blockers have been around for a long, long time. Okay? Anybody who says that they're a new drug is lying to you. And they're known to be safe, by the way, also. So the kid goes on that because when a child begins to go through puberty and they're transgender, and they go through the puberty of their birth gender, whatever the doctor pronounced them to be, it's pretty much like assault. It's abuse. It is the most horrible thing that child can go through because it assaults every morsel of their being. Okay, so they put them on puberty blockers to prevent that, to give the kid time to figure out themselves and whether or not they really are trans.
Jenny, I'm going to stop you there for just a moment. Elkin needs to go. And Elkin, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. I think you are very brave. I think you're a very smart young man. I think you saw some of the comments from the chat about you that they all think that you are very smart and you're very interested in learning.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really interesting to be on here and hear everyone's different opinions. I always like to do that. So thank you. Bye.
Come
Bye.
back anytime.
Hi, Oaks.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, if a child is persistent in their observation of themselves, their belief in themselves, their direction that they want to establish for themselves, sometime around when they get to late 15, 16 kind of years old, they might, and that's a big might, that depends entirely on them and how their therapy is going and what their parents say and all this kind of stuff. They might go on hormones. Okay. Even once they start hormones, it's going to take a year for them to really have any long-lasting permanent effect.
Okay.
Okay.
So do you
Then,
think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
then when they hit 18, they're eligible to have any kind of medical intervention they want, various surgeries and stuff. And maybe their insurance will cover it. Maybe it won't. Maybe they have a rich parent that can pay for it. Maybe they don't, but they figure it out at that time. So the reason I described all that is people love to say that, oh, there's this, they just rapidly suddenly turn transgender. Well, that's called rapid onset gender dysphoria, ROGD, and it does not exist. It was made up by people who are trans haters over in the UK. They invented this term just to satisfy their own needs and beliefs that it's some magical thing that people are have thrust upon them. It's okay. It's just not real.
So may I ask, are you, now that you are transitioned, are you happy? Are you happy with your life now?
Oh God, yes.
So you feel content,
Oh yeah.
and you
I mean,
don't think that,
I still have issues like anybody else, but as far as my identity and knowing what I am and living the life I live, yes, absolutely.
but so you're not under the belief that God created us male and female, and he
I don't
knew what
believe in
he
God.
was. Okay. So that's, that seems like an easy way to alleviate yourself from it. I don't
I
know.
didn't believe in God long before I came out, if that helps you.
Okay.
I've put a link to a video in the chat. This is my favorite video on understanding what it means to be transgender. It's put out by Forrest Velkai. It's called Sex and Sensibility. And Forrest Velkai is a science teacher. It is an excellent video. It goes through a great deal of the scientific studies, the physiological studies, and it also shows how being transgender is not just a thing in humans, that gender is not binary of being male female strictly in nature either. There are animals that can change their gender. There are animals that what gender they are is difficult to tell. It's an excellent video. I highly recommend it.
I'd also like to knock down another mythology that is very popular today. Again, it's one of those lies, and we call it the bathroom lie, that we got to protect children from transgender people in the bathroom. You know, transgender people have been around for all of time, but they've been getting medical treatment since the early 1900s. Did you know that?
No.
Okay, well, they have. I have never heard of any transgender person ever assaulting or bothering another person in a bathroom ever, anywhere on earth.
So, but can you understand the concern
Yes,
of
yes, I
parents
can.
that parents have? I mean, do you understand where that your rights are bleeding over into my rights when people that are transgender say they want to be able to use the bathroom where they feel comfortable using it, but yet if you have small children, can you understand where as a parent that would make you feel threatened?
Well, now
No,
wait a minute,
I
Karlana.
don't, because I
Look at
understand that
Jenny. Look at Jenny's picture. If you saw Jenny walking into the women's restroom, would you even question whether or not she was a woman?
and that is what I really look like.
I mean, possibly not. I don't. I just see the little thumbnail picture. You know, I don't.
There are as many cis women, women who are not transgender, who are questioned about using the female restroom and are questioned as to whether they are truly male or female, as
Who
there
are
are
physically
trans women. Yeah,
physically thrown out of the bathrooms.
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yep. And as far as recordable cases of it, there have been more cis women who have been tossed out of bathrooms than trans women, as far as passability or meeting the binary demands of people's stereotypes.
But can you see where it makes me feel threatened, that I feel like I'm just continually having to follow someone else's lead on how I am supposed to be woke and follow the right rules?
Okay.
Can you understand how that gets in my business though? That's like I was saying about pride and all of that. It's no longer just tolerance. It's a forced acceptance, and that goes against what, you know, none of us here want that. We don't want a forced acceptance. But yet it seems like in some instances with certain people, then that's okay. And that's
Well,
why I'm saying,
I accept that you're a Christian.
right.
Why can't you accept me that I am who I am?
I have no hatred for you. I have no hatred for you.
I don't have any hatred for you. So why
I-
can't we be together and just accept that we both exist?
I wish things were better. I do. I just feel like that we're at a time now where there's just everything has become chaos. And
Oh, and by the way, most transgender people I know are Christian.
really,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, really.
I mostly hang out in atheist circles, so I
there's
didn't
a
realize that.
There's a woman in the next town down who is transgender and is the pastor of their church.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
wow.
And I know at least 3 people who are pastors and transgender.
Mm-hmm.
See, that seems like a real contradiction to me, because that seems like that's going against what God wants. But
That's because you have been taught that sexuality is some horrible non-Christian thing. Okay? Sexuality, the Bible, everybody says, "Oh, the Bible bans homosexuality, the Bible bans transgender." No, it doesn't. There are no words in the actual Bible for homosexual. The passage that everybody takes out of Leviticus, okay? When you take it to the original language the Bible was written in, says, "Man shall not lay with a child." It does not say another man. It says a child. That is banning pedophilia. It's not banning gay people. But back in the in the King James times, they rewrote the Bible, and he specifically changed that passage and others that relate to it so that it says men will not lie with men. And you want to know real killer of it? King James was gay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
but do you not see that we as a world, as a country, we just keep accepting more and more and more, and my mind is going, when does it stop? When do we get to the point where we say, it's like we don't have definite right and wrong anymore. It's like I'm going to do what makes me feel good. I'm going to be my own God.
okay, explain to me what's wrong about being transgender then. By saying that, you're saying that there's something about me that's wrong, that's inappropriate, that shouldn't exist in society. Don't you see that?
What I'm saying is, I think God made us the gender we were born. And
I was born this way. God made me transgender.
why do you think he makes people transgender? I'm just questioning. I just wonder, like, why would he?
I don't
Why
know.
would he?
Probably for the same reason that he gives little babies in utero, gives them cancer.
No, I'm just like I said, these are just questions that we don't. That's what I'm saying. We can't answer some questions, but I mean, I'm sure your life has not been easy, and like I said, I have no hatred for you. I just feel like that things in our world are not good right now, and that's part of why I wanted to be a part of this show, because I feel like if we're truly, if people are godless, to me that's equated with hopelessness, and that's just my belief. That's just what my faith tells me. If I denounced God and didn't have a belief in him at all, I can't imagine what that would do to me psychologically. It would be devastating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you that
you,
having, yeah, I'll let you go in just a moment, Jenny.
Okay, sure.
And I made it quite clear to you that yes, I understand that that's what you think would happen, but there are many of us, there's a whole community of us that all used to be believers and now we're not, and we're not hopeless. None of us are going, oh no, it's the end. We're hopeless. We don't have any purpose. If we're not depressed, we're just fine.
And so you don't think you're going to have a day of judgment. You just think that's all. You don't have any worries.
Okay, let's ask this question. Why would I? What reason is there for anyone to think that is true?
I've just always been brought up with faith, and I just continue on that path.
Okay, so you have no reason to believe it's true. You just think it. And so I
fear God.
Think it,
I fear God. That keeps me grounded.
Okay, but why do you think God exists?
It's a belief I have, and I have had things happen. Have you not ever had things happen in your life that you could not explain, that were more than a coincidence, that you felt like it was the hand of God? Have you not ever had a moment like that in your life that you've experienced?
When I was a young child and didn't understand the world, I did.
I did as a young adult, but when I reflect back, there's nothing that happened that could not have happened without a God being involved.
Oh my goodness. To say such a thing.
You see,
Well, show me one
Karlana,
thing that has
Karlana,
ever happened in the in the history of our lifetime that that God did it, that there's evidence that it was supernatural, that a God did it.
There have just been moments in my life. I can't, personally, I'm not going to obviously elaborate on that to you, but I have just had different moments and times in my life when I couldn't explain it. And I knew that it was the hand of God. I knew that it was the presence of God.
Okay.
I knew that he was moving in my life for that certain situation, that he answered it to me. I can't tell you how I knew that or what exactly it felt like. It was a personal experience, and I don't doubt it. I mean, it's real to me. It's
Okay.
real to me.
So you just believe it, but you have no reason to believe it. You just feel it. It's just a feeling. And if God is nothing more than just a feeling, then his existence is only in your mind and in your emotions. There is no part of God that exists outside of your own brain.
I disagree with that. I think he made the world. I think the intricacies of nature cannot be explained. I don't think that a Big Bang theory happened and made the diversity of nature that we see, and the ocean and the sea turtles and all these things can be explained as just as a happenstance. I believe it's the hand of God.
Then you do not understand science. That
Well,
you're not educated enough in science, and that's not a fault. It's just the way it is.
I wasn't either.
if I become so educated that I lose my belief in God, then I don't want that in my life. I don't want to be.
There's lots of evolutionary scientists who believe in God.
And that goes back to what we said at the very beginning. I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. And if what I am learning by studying this world shows me that God does not exist, I'm not going to cling to a faith just because it feels good if the evidence shows me that it's not true.
Okay, and so you don't feel like I don't know what the statistics are right now with the number of people that are atheists or agnostic or don't believe in God, and you don't think there's a correlation to the way the world is now. You don't think it's a darker place than what it was, say, even 5 years ago. You don't see the significance. You don't see that.
Well, okay.
Well, actually, yes, I do. I think she's absolutely correct. I think that the right wing is doing such a horrible job in this country that they're about to turn us into a fascist authoritarian state.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, in the last few months, our country is starting to go to hell in a handbasket because the Christians want to dictate what we can and cannot think. And
Carl, I keep mispronouncing
Karlana.
Karlana.
Yeah, Karlana.
I want to say Anna. So Karlana. What do you know about Roe Wade?
Oh gosh, we have to go there.
I don't really want to go there. We've only got a few more minutes.
No, we're not going to go there in
Okay.
terms that you're both thinking. What do you know about it? They removed the decision that allows abortion, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What else did it do?
You mean what else did it do when it was first established? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me.
When they decided that this law or this court decision is inappropriate because of this factor, and this factor. Do you know what those factors were?
What?
Okay. They made this decision because they thought it does not go back far enough in American history to have any proper position in American history. So therefore, it is inappropriate. It's too new of a concept, even though abortion was dealt with in the 1700s. But they think that it's not old enough for us to use. Do you know how Roe was decided back in the 72, 73? It was decided. Okay, go ahead.
I think there was some controversy about that, if I'm remembering
sure.
right. The woman that was involved in that was like playing both sides and dishonest about the whole thing. If you do Google that, and you'll see that maybe I'm right about that.
Yeah,
I'm getting some hateful.
let's get off of
Okay.
that.
I'm getting some hateful comments about me being brainwashed, but you don't think, okay, I'm going to try to say this in the nicest way possible. There are people from all sides and all walks of life that can be brainwashed in whatever ideology there is. Thank you, Kelly.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jenny.
Now, Roe Wade was decided that it was okay by that court, the courts in the 72, 73, because it said an American citizen's right to privacy is sacrosanct and outweighs any law that the state has made to ban abortion. In other words, that a woman has agency, has bodily autonomy to do what she wants with her body because it's her body. And that would also mean that men can do with their body what they want to do with their body. But it also means, if we're dealing with the fact that people have a right to privacy in this country, it also means that the government can't come into your bedroom and say, you can't have those sex toys. It also means that they can't come into your bedroom and say, you people are gay, you're not allowed to have sex, get out of here. It also means that the government can't come in and say, excuse me just a moment. Old people cough a lot. That the government can't come in and say, you have a mixed race couple. I'm sorry, you can't have that anymore.
I know
because those are all rights to privacy.
Yeah, I know a lot of mixed race couples that are very nervous right now that the Supreme Court is going to rule that racial that interracial couples cannot marry.
See, to me, I don't personally equate my way of thinking. The abortion issue is a completely different issue than someone's sexuality, and it's two completely different issues you're dealing with.
Okay, it is not because of the right to privacy and the right to have agency over your own body.
Okay, let's move off of that topic, because like I said, we are running out of time, and that really is not where I wanted to go today. I think let's go ahead and thank Karlana for coming, and you did a good job in defending your position, and it was good to hear from someone who had a different perspective for a change. But I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to Karlana and bring Kitty in, and we'll have just a short discussion afterward. But thank you very much for coming, Karlana.
I'd love to do it again with you, Karlana.
Thank you so much. And maybe we can make that happen. Listen, I really appreciate the respect and the opportunity. And to my son, everyone was kind to him. And I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I didn't realize that was her son either.
Yeah, that was her son. I was surprised because, she had him fairly late in life for him to be that young. And I didn't think she was that old. I thought she was younger. But anyway, hello, Kitty.
Hi.
Kitty has been waiting patiently for me because with Karlana and her son, this was the first time they've ever been on a live stream. I wasn't sure how well they would know how to do it. And if something went wrong and they disappeared, I had Kitty sitting in the background waiting the entire time to pop in if we needed someone for commentary.
I'll always be your wing woman, Granny. I got your back.
Thank you. And I appreciate very much Jenny's coming in because, we did get into some medical issues where Jenny has far more information than I do.
Well, I hope I was not disrespectful.
No, I
I
think you
don't
were
think you
fine.
were. I thought that was the gentlest I have ever seen you.
I tend to agree. I'm not gonna lie, I love you, Jenny. I do. You are like a big sister to me. I adore you. But you can get very heated, and I was a little worried because we had somebody new to this whole thing and a minor, and I'm like, please, 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 Jenny. But you did amazing. You were firm, but you also were respectful. And I'll say the same thing about Kelly. Like, she asked tough questions and she pushed for answers and didn't let them kind of like try to worm out of answering by, giving a non-answer. And I mean, the chat is the chat, we really have no control over that. I didn't see anything that was like too egregious that required removing. I did make some comments to some people that might have said some things that I personally thought were inappropriate. Like there was somebody that made a comment about there's tons of evidence, for grooming happening in reference to trans people.
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
missed
no,
that one.
the grooming is, there's tons of evidence that, clergy and staff in churches were grooming and abusing children. There is very little evidence. I'm not going to say it never happens because any human being could be a groomer, but it is not more likely to occur in trans communities. It's much more likely to occur in religious communities just by the numbers. But no, that young man was very clever and very
He
kind
was.
and open to having a dialogue. And I like that, there were questions you asked where he didn't really know how to answer them, and sometimes he would try to like sidestep an answer, and then you would press him a bit more and he would say, well, I don't know, or I haven't like read that, or I don't know the names of those things. And mad respect, because very rarely do you see somebody who is very set in their beliefs that is willing to say, I don't know. They'll come up with excuses and they'll come up with random things, and or just completely not answer the question by giving a non-answer. Like, it depends on what the definition of is kind of thing. But he's just very, very clever and very well spoken and very mature for his age, I will definitely say.
Yeah. I was especially shocked when he supported a couple of things that I said.
Mm-hmm.
He took my side over his mom, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, I mean, it gives me hope that, even if there is, I'm not going to be disingenuous or like, I'm not going to make assumptions, because you can raise a child in religion without it being full on indoctrination. So I'm not going to say that. But when you do raise a child in religion, even if you're not going full on Jesus camp indoctrination, you're still you're your child's world. Like, the world begins and ends with you. And if you
Right.
say this is how it is, then it carries more weight than elsewhere. But the fact that he's open to communication, the fact that he's open to learning new things tells me that as he gets older, even if he stays within the faith, he's not going to be one of those like book burning, like religious zealots. If anything, he'll be, a moderate, like socially liberal Christian, which I'm fine with those, because those aren't the ones trying to force their beliefs down other people's throats. They're like, hey, I got my beliefs, you got your beliefs, let's all kumbaya, live and let live kind of thing. And I have no problem with those types of Christians.
I was especially I won't say surprised, because I see this so often with Christians. But when it came right down to it, and I asked, why do you believe what you believe? It all came down to, this feels right. It feels good. This is how I feel. And we began with the establishment of, we want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. And she agreed that that was a good goal. But then when it came down to, okay, so if the evidence shows that some of your God beliefs are not true, do you stop believing? And the answer was no, because it feels good.
So
And
I wanted to take her on the ride of indoctrination, and I wanted to point out to her that she was indoctrinated into her religion,
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't a malicious thing, but it was still indoctrination. And I was not indoctrinated into being trans,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I was born this way, that nobody's born religious. Okay. And for them to say that trans people indoctrinate children into it is a complete lie. No,
Mm-hmm.
children are indoctrinated into religion.
Mhm.
Transgender is discovered.
Same thing with sexuality. Like, I knew from a very early age that I was bisexual. I mean, it honestly, like, Dana Scully was one of my first, like, crushes. Like, I loved watching the X-Files with my dad, but also the Pink Power Ranger and the Green/White Ranger. Like, I had a crush on both of them. So, like, I knew from, like, elementary school level that you know, I found them pleasing, and then when I got older and got, like, closer to puberty, I mean, I hit puberty at 12, so I was, late elementary school, early middle school, and it's one of those things, like, I knew that I was interested in boys and girls, so, I mean, there wasn't this I mean, pride events still happened, back then, but it wasn't quite so, like, rainbow capitalism-y, like, you didn't see it everywhere, it's just if you knew about it, you knew about it, especially if you lived somewhere like San Diego, but you didn't see corporations pandering to the LGBTQ community the way that they do now
Mm-hmm.
because they realize that they can make a lot of money off of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I didn't even know what heterosexual and bisexual meant. I mean, hell, I didn't even know the word atheist until after I was an atheist. I discovered it when in a web forum about e-cigarettes, and we were like in an off-topic room, and someone mentioned, "Oh yeah, I'm an atheist," and I was like, "Okay, I know I have an idea of what that word should mean." So I went and I looked it up because I had never heard it before. I'm like, hey, I'm an atheist because I already didn't have any God beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I had grown past those. So, that was my first thing. And I was in my early 20s when I first heard the word atheist. Like, being in Florida, it is, they say it's a battleground state, but it's been pretty solidly red forever.
Okay, I'm going to close us up because we are very close to the 1.5 hour mark, and we've been going for quite a while. I was just checking my calendar to see what I have on the calendar for next week, and I actually don't have anything. So I'm going to be putting something together, and very likely I'm going to be asking Kitty, since Kitty had to sit and wait patiently through the whole show and was only able to put a few things into the private chat.
I
But
don't mind, Kelly.
I know you don't. I know you don't. But I would love to have you on for a whole show if you're available next week. But I haven't asked, and I don't want to presume. Um, so so that we'll have some kind of just people from the community, but I do have something big coming soon. July 20th, Drew, genetically modified skeptic, will be my guest. So be watching for the July 20th show. And then produced videos this week. I'm doing something a little bit different. It's just my own private thoughts about Susan Pavensi. That is Susan, the older girl from the Chronicles of Narnia. I started thinking about her a little bit and decided to do a video on that. And I was shocked to discover as I was starting to do that just how timely that is. I didn't realize it, but Netflix is getting ready to release some things on Narnia. So
Really?
that is
Got
coming up as
screwed.
well.
She really got screwed.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
of all of the siblings, she had it the worst.
I don't know anything about Narnia, so I can't comment one way or the other. It was way later than my time to see that kind of thing.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to try Turkish delights just because of the scene when, essentially the witch gives the youngest boy Turkish delights. It's kind of like a snow queen kind of thing. It kind of, I think, whether intentionally or not, drew a bit of inspiration from the tale of the Snow Queen with, the splinter in the eye and it changing the personality of the person. It's what eventually became Frozen, but they took a lot of liberties with the source material for Frozen. So it's completely different, but that's what they were going for originally. Elsa was supposed to be a villain, but then when they did her signature song, Let It Go, they're like, no, this is more of a coming out song, more of a being true to yourself. It's not the song of a villain, you know? So that's why they changed up the story to make her a sympathetic, like, antagonist as opposed to, because you can be an antagonist without being a villain. So yeah, they made her a sympathetic antagonist as opposed to an actual villain in the story, which I thought was really interesting.
It is interesting. I didn't know that about Elsa. That's an interesting tale.
And Dario Luna, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm glad that you enjoyed the show. It is difficult to get theists to come on the show because we are somewhat we are antagonistic. Even if we aren't hostile, we're definitely opposed to their viewpoint. And the one thing that Carla said that surprised me so much was that she felt that gay pride people are completely in her face and religious people are not. And
I wanted
where
to
I live, there was one gay pride event. It was at a private club. And I can't go down the street. Like I said, I can't go to the grocery store without seeing a dozen churches.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, between it, just if you count all places of worship as churches, we have Scientology, we have Jehovah's Witness, we have mosques, we have temples, Jewish temples. We've got even more Christian churches. They outnumber the others like 10-1. But I can't throw a rock in any direction without, it bouncing off a couple of churches. And whenever I'm driving on the highway, there's tons of advertisements for different churches of, God loves you, or, call this number, join this church, or, the abortion ones that, try to guilt trip people into going to crisis pregnancy centers and not terminating pregnancies. It's ridiculous, and it is very much in our faces. Like, I think though, when you believe it, you are so desensitized to it that you don't notice that there's a Christian church every other block, or that there's, in a 20-mile stretch of road, you might have 30 billboards, talking about churches or Jesus or abortion. And because you're not on the lookout for it. Whereas something like Pride, it is kind of out and in your face. But, Pride started as a riot, literally, like Stonewall. And I mean, it's tamed down substantially. And, we can have a conversation of what is appropriate and isn't appropriate for Pride. Should all of Pride be family friendly, or should it be sectioned off where you have an adult only area and then a general public area? Those are all nuanced conversations we can have. But unfortunately, we as a species in this day and age have become allergic to nuance. And there's a lot of things that, are nuanced. And she made the comment, and I was just talking on Purple Stream earlier today, that, there's more queer people, there's more trans people. And as Jenny said, because she was there, yeah, the population has gotten better, but they say the same thing about autistic people. And the explanation for that isn't, it's not vaccines, it's not hormones put in the food. It comes down to higher population. It has more than doubled since, and autism wasn't even in the DSM-5 or DSM. It was added to the DSM-4. So before that, in the 90s, autism wasn't even a thing that they diagnosed. Like, they would just call it mental retardation and be done with it. And we have a better understanding of neurodivergence and the autism spectrum, because it is a spectrum, because very little in this world is black and white. everything is shades of gray, be it sexuality or, gender identity or any, like there is no just black and white. Like there's a whole rainbow in between.
Okay, Jenny, what were you going to say?
I was just going to mention that church people, I don't want to say Christians, church people don't realize that they have had a 2,000 plus year run of being the only game in town. And that's fine. But now that there are other people there that they've been taught they should hate, and those other people are getting any kind of publicity whatsoever, they think it's this giant rush that is just coming in and taking over their world, because they're not used to actual competition. They're not used to somebody standing there and saying, "Oh, okay, that's you. This is me." And they just don't feel comfortable with it because they've been indoctrinated.
Okay, before we go, Jenny, is there anyone that you would like to show for?
Just Purple's show tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central Time.
10 p.m. Central, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You.
Okay.
Oh, and Mage Grey Wolf actually started a gardening channel. Let me see if I can pull up the link so I can toss that in the chat, because he DM'd me. Where'd it go? So I'm just trying to get some subscribers sent over his way. Like, he's very active on Purple streams. He's a lovely person. He's been chilling with me, keeping me company in Discord while I'm sewing or putzing around on the computer. So if you would, please go and subscribe to his channel. I would send you a big hug, big internet social distance hug, if you will go subscribe to him.
Okay. I think I need some advice. I have a black thumb. I started an aerial garden, and I have this beautiful aerial garden, but now I wanted to start some new plants, and the plants were too big for the aerial garden. I tried to transplant them, and I was surprised. I did get 3 of the plants to survive the transplant, 3 out of 7. But yeah, I have the hardest time keeping plants alive.
Transplanting
he's been
is
giving
the
me
roughest
tips.
thing that a plant can go through. And a death rate is just to be expected.
Oh, and Mage is in the chat. Hi, Mage. I'm sending people your way.
Yep.
I can't wait to see you.
We put your link up, and yeah, we're sending everyone to you for gardening advice.
Yeah, see, if you say Mage's name and garden, he just shows up. It's great. So if you need gardening tips, I know I've been going to him saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" or "What do you think about that?" Because I have a little garden in the backyard, because my son, he loves the idea of having his own little magic garden. So, we've chatted a little bit about that, and he's just good people. So show him some love.
Okay, I know we're out of time, but I'm going to share an inside joke with you, which you may see on Twitter, and I'm sure it's going to come up again. Is Granny's burning bush? You have to know about that. For those of you who do not know, the first season of Critical Cripple's Critical Questions, I was on, and I was awarded the funniest answer to the question of who trims your bushes? Do you do it yourself, or do you hire someone to do it? And Stool kept making comments about Granny's bush. And I played it straight and kept answering the question as to the bushes outside, but kept it that you could also mean Granny's bush. And so that Granny's bush is trimmed by a team of 3 professionals became a thing and was hilarious. And now this past weekend, Oz put on a conference in Fort Wayne, which I attended, and it was called Better. And there's going to be one next year. If you can at all get to Fort Wayne next year for Better, do so. It was a blast. Well, Godless Engineer was there, and he did a Brocephus routine, and he was talking about Moses. And after his routine, people were allowed to ask him questions, and somebody asked him, what kind of bush was the burning bush? And and Brocephus said he thought it was some kind of bush that, when it burned, gave off hallucinogenic vapors. And I then raised my hand and took the microphone and said, "No, I'm actually a lot older than I look. I was there. It was my bush." So that is Granny's burning bush.
I love it. Honestly, John he's great. He and Casey are just lovely, lovely people.
I'm just wondering if your bush was burning, who the hell got you that hot?
I mean,
Moses, of course.
let's just hope it wasn't friction that started that fire, because like too much friction is not gonna have a good time for anybody, because that's when you get the chafing and nope.
Okay. With
And
that,
thank you, Hive Science. I did like a pride themed makeup. You say hi?
Hi. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
she said hi to you.
Hi to you.
Hi.
Say hi to Jenny and
Hi
to Granny.
Jenny and to Granny.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hey, sweetheart.
Okay, and with that, I want to say thank you to Jenny, thank you to Kitty, and even though they're gone, thank you, Karlana, and thank you, Elkin. You have been wonderful guests. It has been a great show. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for your questions and your comments. They have been absolutely wonderful. Everyone have a great week. See you later. Live your life.
Bye-bye. Love you, chat.